This is going to be an extremely controversial video, but I felt it was worth making. Have you ever had a movie or a couple of films that everybody loves? They may have received critical and commercial acclaim. They may have even received some awards and are now fondly remembered as classics. But for some reason you personally don't understand the appeal for one reason or another. Well, you're not alone, because I made a little list of my personal movies that I don't like but everybody else seems to love. I've tried to watch the majority of these movies more than once. Some movies do grow on you with repeat viewings, for instance in my case E.T. As such, a count of the number of times I've seen the movie will be given, and who knows, maybe some of the ones I've only seen once might grow on me, but I very much doubt it. Please note, these are just my opinions and nothing else. If you happen to really like these films, then that's fine, more power to you. But please, for the love of God, don't be childish in the comments. We're all adults, at least I'm assuming the people watching this video are adults, so act like ones. As such, I have disabled the ratings on this video because if you have something to say it in the fucking comments. Also, please note, this doesn't mean I think all the movies on this list are terrible. A lot of them are just really below average or mediocre. I've put these films in release order, and let's get started. So first off, we have Alien. Yes, the original Alien. I can feel the dislike buttons being hit, the childish comments being written, and the subscriber count dropping, but this is the movie I'm probably most gutted about not liking. It's the type of movie I should like, and other than brilliant visual effects and set design, what I found was a very flabby script with very little story and character depth. I think if I saw the movie as a child or on its original release, then maybe I would have more appreciation for it, but I didn't. I first saw it in my late teens in the late 2010s, and it did nothing for me whatsoever. And I don't want to hear the excuse that, oh, I don't like it because I watched it too late. No, I first saw the Star Wars films in my teenage years. Yes, I know, don't look at me like that. So I have very little nostalgic connection to that franchise, and yet I consider the original trilogy one of my all-time favourite trilogies, and even some of the films in that trilogy as my all-time favourite films. Even after Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father twist became common knowledge, I still really enjoyed them because there was a lot more to the characters and the story. Alien has very little of that. Instead, it just relies on suspense and shock moments to keep the audience engaged, which is fine for one viewing with no spoilers, but it makes it very hard to go back to. A lot of other movies on this list also fall into that trap as well. Also, most of the characters are just fucking idiots and always take the wrong decisions, so I have very little sympathy for them when they die. It's not even that original, it just ticks off every horror and sci-fi cliche in the book. I think Aliens is a major improvement because there's more depth to the characters and the storyline is far more interesting. And I personally think the move into action was the right idea. If you want a better sci-fi horror film, watch The Thing instead. It actually has well-written characters and the creature is far more interesting. And before you say, yes, I know The Thing came out later, but it came out only a few years later, and on Alien's behalf, that's no excuse for idiotic characters and piss-poor writing. You all saw this next one coming, and it's Rain Man. Fucking Rain Man. I did a review of this film not too long ago where I basically ripped it to shreds, and whilst yes, I will agree that a lot of my criticisms towards the autism representation haven't aged particularly well, but even if you took all the autism stuff out of it, it's still fucking boring and very heavy-handed in its message, not to mention it has the subtlety of a plane crash. With me being autistic, I have a more deep hatred towards it than if I was neurotypical, but even if I was neurotypical, it would have still made the list because it's so fucking boring. Next up is going to be a fairly controversial one, and it's The SHAWSHANK Redemption. Believe it or not, when this movie was originally released, it was practically ignored at the box office and won no Oscars. However, over the years it has picked up a major cult following, and people regard it as a fucking masterpiece. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's the #1 highest rated movie on IMDb. If I'm totally honest, I don't get the appeal. I don't hate this movie, but I just think it's very mediocre. The major problem with the movie I have is the way prison life is presented. My issue is that other than the beginning, it really trivialises prison life and paints this whole gooey nostalgia to it. I've not been to prison before, and God forbid I ever do, but I can't imagine it looking or feeling anything like Shawshank. Also, I hate how all the prison are these loving, nice, innocent people, and the prison ones are complete bloody bastards. If you want to be more believable, have some, if not most, of the other prisoners be absolute pieces of shit to better match their crimes. Because I'm pretty sure a bunch of murderers and rapists will be at best cynical and at worst worse than fucking Hitler. I mean, for fuck's sake, Morgan Freeman in the film, you know, he's such this loving character, but I didn't buy the fact that he basically was a murderer before he went to prison. You know, he doesn't feel like a fucking murderer at all. I mean, I can suspend my suspension of disbelief pretty far, but this is just taking the fucking piss. It tells you something when Porridge is a more believable representation of prison than Shawshank. Also, the movie is extremely cliched and hits every beat that every sappy feel-good movie does. Not to mention it's way too bloody long as well. There are much better Stephen King movies out there like The Shining, Misery, and yes, even Stand By Me. Admittedly, I've only seen Shawshank once, so it might grow on me like E.T. did, but I very much doubt it. Just to say, I have read some of the positive reviews, and they always say if you dislike Shawshank, you're a cynical arsehole. No, I will admit I can be quite cynical sometimes, but I do enjoy good feel-good movies, like for instance E.T., the original Star Wars, Rocky, and I do enjoy some decent family films as well. I just consider Shawshank the weakest link in the feel-good genre. It's far from a badly made film. It's well shot and the acting's good. I just found very little in it, and the reason why it's on this list is the fact that everybody treats it like a god. Next up is Seven. So far I've only seen 2 David Fincher films, this and Fight Club. Fight Club's not on the list because I really do enjoy Fight Club. But Seven, nah, it just didn't do it for me. It's an okay idea on paper, but in execution I just found it boring, especially near in the middle. It just doesn't really go anywhere. Also, the twist, at first I thought it was confusing, then it was just fucking pathetic. I don't like the twist at all. It's just, if you want a better movie with a twist ending, go for The Usual Suspects. Next, The Sixth Sense. Like with Alien, once you know the twist, there is very little meat on this carcass. The storyline and the characters weren't interesting enough to keep me engaged. It solely relies on that bloody twist, and once you know it, there's very little material to go back to. Even from another perspective on repeat viewing, like with The Usual Suspects. Finally, a lot of you have already seen this coming. The Dark Knight trilogy, also known as the Chris Nolan Batman films. Ooh, this video is made just to rip this trilogy to shreds. While the other movies on this list are below average or just plain mediocre, I consider all these movies absolute crap for mostly similar reasons. Batman Begins was watchable. The first half was okay, but the second half was painfully boring. The characters, mainly the villains, were forgettable and bland. Also, the action scenes are really badly shot. I mean, stop with the fucking shaky cam already. Jesus Christ. The Dark Knight. I like the Joker, but take him out and what you get is a painfully slow and boring crime film with some idiot in a gimp suit putting on this stupid deep voice, which just makes it sound like he smoked 5 million cigarettes a day for 20 years, and maybe swallowed some raw eggs for good measure. Other than a few good scenes, the rest of the movie was painfully boring. The Dark Knight Rises. Oh my god. A contender for one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It took all the bad things about the previous films and ramps them up to 1,000,000. It's nearly 3 hours, and yet it barely has even an hour's worth of story. Most of it was painfully dull, mainly the parts where Bruce Wayne's trying to get out of this bloody prison. Also, I was unconvinced with the relationship between Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne. Batman Returns handled that relationship far better. and yet Dark Knight Rises is considered better than Batman Returns somehow. Yeah. The only thing I kind of liked was Bane, but even then he was nowhere near as interesting as the Joker was. He was just basically a generic flat villain. A quick honourable mention, this is an unscripted part, but this was a movie I was contemplating whether or not to put on the list or not on the list, but I've decided, you know what, it belongs on the list, and that is Frozen, the Disney film. For many years, this film was fucking everywhere, you know. You couldn't go to the shops without seeing Frozen crap everywhere. There was that whole Elsagate thing on YouTube which made everybody who's over the age of 8 lose the will to fucking live. And the film itself, it's not that good, you know. I do enjoy some Disney films. I didn't mind Tangled, but Frozen, my problem with it is it's way too bloody fast. You just go from scene, but there's very little character development. You know, it just basically goes at breakneck speed. It just goes from this scene to that scene, this scene to that scene, this scene to that scene. Slow the fuck down, for fuck's sake. And also, I want to know about Elsa's ice powers, but the movie doesn't tell me that at all. It just goes, oh, it's Disney magic. Bullshit, I don't buy it. It's not a good film, honestly, it's not. Even as a film on its own merit, it's not that good. Kids like it for some reason. I have too much respect for kids, you know, to say something like, oh, it's kids, they don't know shit. But I think this is a close call. The only reason why people like it is that bloody song, which I can't stand that fucking song. I'm not even going to mention the title. You all probably know it by now, because it's been hammered in your head, especially if you've been surrounded by kids. I've heard the sequel's better because it actually makes fun of the original, but I don't care enough to watch it. So that's the end of the video. Feel free to throw abuse at me in the comments, and links to pitchforks and torches will be provided in the description. Anyway, goodbye.